Hello and welcome to the Retail Insider. So, today let's talk about freight rates, the ever fun topic of freight rates. Before we get to that, though, today we got this uh, note that inflation falls in June for the first time since 2020 as consumer prices increase continue to slow. The CPI declined 0.1% over the previous month and increased just 3% over the prior year in June, a deceleration from May's flat month over month increase and 3.3% annual gain in prices. Both measures beat economists' expectations of a 0.1% monthly increase and a 3.1% annual gain. All right, so everything seems good. Notably, this is the first time since May 2020 that monthly headline CPI came in negative. It's also the slowest annual gain in prices since March 21. So everything seems good so far, right? All right, so scroll down in this Yahoo article a little bit more, and we see the decline in the consumer price index between May and June won't stick, but it strengthens the case for the Federal Reserve to begin cutting interest rates in September, particularly as the labor market has softened, wrote Oxford Economics chief U.S. economist Ryan Sweet. Still, the economists warn we caution about reading too much into the decline in the CPI in June and don't believe that this is a new trend. All right, so everything seems like good news, and then come down here. Still can't read too much into it. Let's take a cautious approach and let's just see. And then here the Seema Shah says, put us firmly on the path for September Fed rate cut, but that a July policy cut is still off the table. Not only would it spark questions of what do they know about the economy that we don't know, but the Fed still needs to gather additional evidence of waning price pressures to be absolutely certain of the inflation path. All right, so a couple of things came out today, at least for us, but many retailers have been working on this. So freight rates are going to change, and suppliers are starting to let retailers know freight rates are changing. The shipping situation is rapidly changing, and many retailers' negotiated container allocation has been cut in half due to lack of equipment availability due to the Red Sea delays, having to go around Cape Hope first through the Red Sea. Also, ships and container availability is becoming challenging, and shipments are being delayed. This situation is causing market rates to raise to COVID levels once again. Basically, we're getting bamboozled, but they have us in a no-win situation. This mob conglomerate of shipping people that can just kind of just do what they want. The carriers are taking advantage of any and everything they can to raise rates and create scarcity to maintain high rates. And the big guys, even Walmart's, the Targets, Home Depot's, Lowe's, they're all getting hit. Everybody who is shipping anything out of Asia, not just China, just out of Asia. Europe is not getting hit too much. Asian suppliers are just now mentioning this to most retailers, which is a little bit surprising because we're just got to a point, things are getting better, and then all of a sudden, the last month it's been, boom, things are not getting better and are only going to get worse. Now they're even suggesting some of these lead times could be back, these really long lead times. So let's take a look at something here. So this was back in June, where CNBC posted, fears are rising. Ocean rate rates may surpass 20,000 with no relief for global trade into 2025. All right, so this is really big. Key points from this: Far East to U.S. ocean rates are up 36% to 41% of the month over month, while air freight prices have jumped 9%. DHL says ocean freight rate inflation might not ease up before Chinese New Year in early 25. I think that's around January, late January, with some forecasts seeing rates reaching to between 20,000 and COVID era peak of 30,000. There's longer Red Sea transits resulting in a shipping container capacity shortage, which I just mentioned, and canceling sailings from Asia are stocking spot ocean freight rates. Demand alone cannot explain the price hikes, with ocean freight rate orders down 48% month over month. So Here it says rising freight rates are a new source of concern in the global supply chain, with forecast warning what we just mentioned could go up to 30%. Um, so the Sea Intelligence issued a note forecast that Asia-Europe spot prices could exceed 20,000 with the Red Sea crisis, and the increase in nautical miles travel needed to be factored in. The pandemic set a precedent, which is that during times of severe distress, freight rates per nautical mile can reach these very high levels. According to the Defense Intelligence Agency's report on the economic impact of the Red Sea attacks, container shipping through the Red Sea has declined by approximately 90% between December 23 and mid-February. Alternate shipping routes around Africa not only add about 11,000 nautical miles, 1 to 2 weeks of transit time, but also add an approximate $1 million in fuel costs for each voyage. All right, so they go on and then they talk about air freight rates. So one other thing just to put this in perspective, and this comes from Statista, and it's hard to see around the paywall, but you have this around here, 2,000, and then now it's up to 5,800. So what they say is container freight rates oscillated dramatically between January 23 and March 24. Freight rates slumped to their lowest level on the 26th of October 23, when the going rate for a 40-foot container was only $1,342. Since then, the global freight rate has generally increased, hitting over $5,800 in June 24, the highest value on record. They say disruption to one can send cascading effects down a chain that needs to function properly for the whole system to work. The COVID-19 pandemic turned out to be an event of such a magnitude to either bring to halt whole industries and supply chains or severely reduce their efficiency. Due to its complexity and transcontinental nature, container shipping was hit especially hard by the pandemic. Since the start of the pandemic, the shipping industry has had to struggle with port closures and congestions, labor shortages, difficulty with capacity utilization, as well as a lack of new shipping containers. These challenges continue to have repercussions on the industry to this day. While costs of operating a container fleet have increased, the surge in freight rates has not served to cover rising expenses. Container ship operators had been reporting record high operating profit margins since the beginning of the pandemic. However, despite these high profit margins, the freight rate increase has had some repercussions. In the second quarter of 2023, main container shipping companies had an average profit margin of 8.9%, a decrease of almost 50% compared to peak first quarter of 2022. Despite the decrease, some of these carriers are combating this trend by using their previous profits to increase their carrying capacity by buying new containers or new ships. However, delivery of these new ships is still years away. And then one last thing here, and this is from a place called Flexport. Why ocean rates are surging. A look at the supply shock after the Red Sea disruptions. So really here we have shippers are pushing cargo for earlier departures to avoid increasing freight costs. Yes, a lot of us are now starting to do that. Many companies are also changing their strategy to accept higher stock levels, fearing that even more costly stockouts that many companies faced during COVID. We don't want to have empty shelves. We don't want there to be a rush or panic as there was. The situation is right now that unless space has already been secured, all vessels are reported full, highlighting the intense demand for shipping slots. To cope with this situation, more carriers are pushing premium options. These options allow shippers to load their cargo on the first available departure date with higher equipment priority, though at a higher cost. This approach helps avoid delays and ensures timely deliveries. Overall, there's no massive uptick in consumer demand. We're not ordering more. Many of us have a lot of inventory we have to push through. And while it is tempting to compare the current situation to the COVID time, this is the biggest difference. What has changed is buying behavior in companies. There is a panic mode due to longer than anticipated transit times. Many companies are now looking at increased stock levels to avoid stockouts, creating an unnatural spike in demand. This, combined with normal May holiday seasonality, is putting pressure on the supply-demand situation, hence drives rates at a rapid speed. All right, so they also mentioned the equipment shortages and how this is going to affect. So, what is all this about? And how does this affect you? Well, let's talk about that. From a retailer's perspective, it seems like the carriers are doing everyone dirty in a way and are taking advantage of the situation. It's like when a greedy gas station, raises prices during an emergency situation or during a hurricane. It goes from what was 284 a day before to 319 or 350. But I'm not a logistics person or a freight person, so take this for a grain of salt. I'm just a person who buys products and tries to source products. What does this all mean? For you, it really means prices will start going up. Retailers have to decide if they'll pass on these extra charges to customers or will they eat the charges. We looked at Walmart the other day, and they made the mention that they're going to have to adjust their margins, see what the customers are willing to pay. So we may go from a retailer once charging 50 to 60%. Now they have to decide, is 30 to 40% good enough? Is it going to cover is it going to be enough? Or will they have to push it down to even 20? So adjusting margins is one potential play they're going to have to do. So this does not just affect retailers like Walmart or Target or Home Depot or Lowe's. This affects suppliers. So all the products made in Asia will have a higher price tag due to freight. So even your simple Temu or Alibaba stuff is going to go up. Some will start trying to load up on shipments before the rates go into effect, as we just saw. Then they're going to have to deal with inventory concerns. And then also, because they load them up front, it could cause longer lead times and delays, because then it's like trying to find slots or ship them out. Retailers are also scrambling. So giants like Walmart, Target, Home Depot, they've struggled to push back against this, against this mob of shipping people that just charge them whatever. Many smaller retailers and grocers are, in a way, having to deal with it. They don't have the volume that Walmart has. They don't have the volume that Target has. Target and Walmart buy so much from overseas that they can always negotiate a better rate than smaller regional grocers, smaller regional retailers. That's not even mentioning like the small mom and pops. But it's just the volumes have a significant impact. So your Walmart item, your Walmart general merchandise item, those little headphones or speakers, they may have been $5 right now. By the end of the year, or mid 2025, they're going to be $7 just because of the increased rates. How big of a change will this be? So some of these rates are going to almost double per cubic foot. What one company may have been at, they may have been at a $2 per cubic foot rate. Now it's almost $4 or it's $5. For the whole container, I've heard that some suppliers were paying $2,500 before, even just a month ago. Now they're paying $10,000. Reading these articles, we saw that what was it going to be, $20,000 and $30,000. So hopefully it doesn't go up to $30,000, but it has a pretty good possibility that's going up to $20,000. So even if it raises back to those COVID prices, retailers and suppliers are going to have to make choices. And this time, the economic environment is different from my perspective. So do they raise the prices, or do they take away from their margin? Any goodwill that a retailer once had is going to be gone quickly. And it should also mean that the luxury sector will get hit, as these $30,000 millionaires are not able to buy those luxury products that they once were. They're going to have to be a little bit more cautious of what they're spending. All of us are. Now, what products will this affect? So generally, for us in America, it shouldn't affect too many products like groceries and food, because most of ours are going to come from the States or Mexico or Latin America. Those won't have as big of, from South America, Brazil, will have a little bit of impact there, but not as much as from Asia. However, it could very well be down the line that we'll see those changes, those impacts, because of the cost of certain raw materials that we get, whether it's fuel, whether it's chemicals or pesticides or certain food to feed animals, or just other raw materials that farmers and growers use, that come from Asia. So they'll be coming on with a higher price tag, and then that subsequently will raise those food prices. So immediately, this will affect all general merchandise, with problems probably starting back to seasons that are shipping now. So probably around Halloween or Christmas, you'll start seeing those items go up in price. So what was a $5 Halloween candy dish is now going to be $6, $7, $8. Who knows? It just depends on what their volume is and what they're able to mitigate and what type of margin they're comfortable with. They can try and keep it $5, but it's just their profit margin may go from 40% for a known brand product, for a private label product, to 20%. And are they okay with that? Does that cover their costs? Does that give them enough leeway? Everyday items, your everyday turn items, your aisle items, those should probably start showing in Christmas time or January as the new products come in and shelves are replenished. It just depends on how much inventory each one has. And we saw from this, some retailers are already stocking up. A couple of us have already thought about placing orders earlier just so we can get today's rates instead of tomorrow's, and then deal with the inventory problem later, which causes its own headaches. So what are the final takeaways here? Essentially, things are not going to get better and prices are increasing. This guy here, this Oxford guy, we can't read too much into this. Yeah, we had a good quarter, or we had a good month. It went down, but this here shows it's not going to last long. It just depends on the sector, probably. So things are going to increase, and it just was going to be interesting to see what retailers do and how they try to address this. In another way, you may think it's better to buy domestic. In a lot of ways, it will be. If you can buy domestic, or even from Canada or from Mexico, it'll be better. And that may be the case in some areas. But these suppliers are going to have to pass on the price increase to you in some way. Even domestic factories, they get that. It's like what DeWalt says, or what others say. It's made in the USA, but globally sourced from global materials. So those materials will go up. Most of our raw material, all your hydration bottles are made in China. They have the just abundance of steel and metal over there. So subsequently, these costs are going to go up. So even though you buy domestic, but great to buy domestic, it's just going to be an issue. So things don't necessarily look good for a while. And then finally, there's also that lingering feeling out there where many people, many insiders, many government officials, the retailer security team, they're all connecting with the U.S. government. They're all connecting with different agencies and different agencies around the world. And they really see a likely conflict with China invading Taiwan really soon, at least within the next 5 years. And this is not about politics, okay? It's just that where we are what we hear from a retail corporate perspective, this is what we're hearing is there's probably going to be conflict within the next 5 years. So once China invades Taiwan, the U.S. will need to step in and defend it, which likely leads to conflict and war. So from a global perspective, we're going to have a lot of unrest these next few years. And the freight rate is just one domino. But the war with China is the biggest threat. So then we move to the whole semiconductor problem again that we saw in COVID, with lack of semiconductors and not even be able to having a shortage on microwaves, or your cars or whatever else, because there's not enough semiconductors to go around. And thankfully, I think there was a Korean plant that just opened up a little bit ago. Intel's still trying to work through theirs. But at the end of the day, I'm not a supply chain expert or logistics or freight rate expert. I just work to find the best products at the best price. So prices are going to increase, unfortunately. And for those of us that don't have a lot of money or make a lot of money, it's going to start hurting more than it already has. So things are already tight as they are, but they're about to be tight for a little bit longer. And then who knows what happens with the election. So thank you for joining us. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.